Hey, we'd like to welcome you, the listening audience, to today's Oxenane brief. Oxenane is Greek for the word to increase. We'd like to help increase your margin of time and money, and we're in a treat for today with Eric Thurwinger and Think Great. Today, you, the listener, our topic is the leadership connection and why leadership is the foundation for your success. We all know it, but rarely are we talking about it. Eric's going to share why that leadership is the foundation of success, why leadership is for everyone, and identifying traits in your leaders. With that, I'd like to introduce the founder and principal CEO, Eric Thurwinger of Think Great. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, Chris. Thanks so much. A big appreciation to you and Bob for having me on today. And what a great topic. We get to talk about leadership, and we got about 15 minutes, to really cover, in my opinion, the preeminent pillar, the foundation for every business. And so even though I've written numerous books, the topic I'm requested to speak on most is leadership. And so I really want to take the next 15 minutes and encourage everybody that's listening to do something that I encourage in the book. In fact, it's the first 5 words of my book, right in the introduction. And I encourage people to make the decision to lead. We've got to make that choice. And what I do is I help organizations, I support business leaders to develop a foundation on leadership, because I have found over the past 30 plus years that leadership is the foundation for success. And I've also discovered that regardless of what industry we work in, leadership is the people side of our business. And so we can make that connection, that leadership connection with our people. But it is a big word. It's a little overwhelming for people. It can be a little daunting. When I first wrote the book about 5 years ago, I looked up leadership on Google, and there were 409 million results that came back. I recently updated the book, and that was just in the last year. And when I had looked up leadership, there were already almost 4 billion results. And so 10 times the amount of information on the same topic. And so a lot of people can be a little perplexed of where to start. And so I like to take the approach that leadership is very much like a journey. We should be guiding our people. But when people are promoted to a position of leadership, then all they can do is fill the position. We share with people the purposes of leadership so they can fulfill a purpose rather than just fill a position. Now, since it is a journey and we go on an expedition, if you will, in leadership, there's certain steps that we take. And the book itself is broken down into these steps or these parts of leadership, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But it's also a program that we introduce to companies. And we get everybody speaking that same language of leadership. We get people to think and act like leaders, even if nobody's reporting into them. And so you might say, well, what's your background in this? How do you have any authority in leadership? And I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I actually know the exact date that my leadership journey started. And it was August 24th, 1987. And I stepped off of the bus at the recruiting depot in San Diego, California. And I began what a lot of people would refer to as boot camp, the onboarding program for the Marine Corps. And if you've seen the movie Full Metal Jacket, you get it. But that's the environment I stepped into. What I discovered with my onboarders, that all the things you expect to happen happened. We were trained with our rifles. We were trained with our gas masks. We were trained with physical training. In other words, we had to run and climb obstacles and all these things. Training. But at 18 years old, with nobody reporting into us, without even completing the 90-day onboarding or boot camp process to earn the title of United States Marine, we were developed as leaders. Within that first day, we're hearing leadership. They're planting leadership seeds in us. Leadership traits like justice, judgment, dependability, initiative, decisiveness, tact. Can you imagine those traits flowing through your organization? They were teaching us leadership principles like know your people and look out for their welfare. Keep your people informed. And so it was an interesting dynamic because we were called every name in the book, and I promise, Chris, I won't use any of those words on this session. But the interesting part is they developed each of us to think and act like a leader. In fact, the Marines aren't the only branch that do that. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, everybody begins with leadership. And so the 2 million men and women serving right now have been developed as leaders. Why? Because leaders make better decisions. Are they perfect? No, but they constantly strive for progress. And so if you're listening to this right now, you may say to you and your team, could we be better? Could we be greater? Well, you don't need to strive for perfection, but you can strive for progress. You can build every single person up to think and act like a leader, even if nobody is currently reporting into them. Now, what this leads into is a little theory that I tie in with the Chinese philosophy of Yin and Yang, which means that opposites are required for balance. And so in the workplace, when you take a look at engagement levels, and we'll talk about that in just a second, things seem to be very off balance, the level of engagement versus the expectations of the leaders, right? Well, I found in the workplace that there are some opposites that are happening. And if we do them correctly, if we combine them and balance them, we can achieve greater things. And what I'm talking about is the combination of training and development. And that creates the engagement ring. And so most organizations, when I say, tell me a little bit about your development programs, they'll say, well, we have a 6-week training. No. Development. Well, when we onboard, we train them at this. No, I'm talking development. Most organizations have zero development, zero leadership development. Now, when I was serving in the Corps, I was an air traffic controller, 18 years old, in a 10-story tower at the busiest military airport in the world, Marine Corps Air Station Yuma. You may think to yourself, I don't like the idea of 18-year-olds controlling traffic. Well, I don't either, unless they've been developed to think and act like a leader. Now, for me, I went to 4 months of air traffic control school. I was trained as an air traffic controller. What empowered me to be in the control tower was not just the training, it was the development, to think and act like a leader, to make better decisions. You see, in the workplace, we tend to train people only, but not develop them. If we develop people, they'll do more with the training, which increases engagement. So we can create this full circle or this engagement ring. But if we're not developing our people as leaders, then all they have is the training. And it's not uncommon to hear leaders say things like, Eric, can you just train on common sense? And what they're really saying is, we've already trained them, they're just not doing it. Of course not. They haven't been developed as a leader. But in the civilian world, we reserve leadership development or training for people in leadership positions. And very few of them get that. So this whole idea of engagement or disengagement is an epidemic in this country. In fact, some studies are showing that engagement, and I mean engagement levels, people excited to be there, fired up, bringing their A game, looking to make positive contributions. I mean, that's engaged. Some studies are showing that's about 10 to 13% of the workforce. Most people are showing up for a paycheck, not for passion. Why? These are fully trained people. They just haven't been developed. And when we develop people, we help them to grow. Gallup did a poll, and I'll show some stats from various polls, but one of the polls that I read recently was that 72% of the workplace is not engaged. And Gallup was quoted as saying they're sleepwalking through work. Chris, how can you accomplish anything when 3 out of 4 people are sleepwalkers? Yeah. And then the stat goes on, no, you can't. It's impossible. And then they said that 18% actively undermine their coworkers. That's almost 1 out of 5. So think about this. They actually have a survey so they can do this study. The question is, do you actively undermine your coworkers? 18% said yes. Chris, I got to think it's higher than that, because if you're an underminer, you're probably a liar too, and you're not going to tell anybody about it. And then on top of it, 25% or 1 out of 4 people are actively seeking a new job. So then it makes you think, all right, if leaders have goals, objectives, strategy, how can you accomplish anything with 72% of the people sleepwalking, 20%, 18 to 20% undermining each other, and 25% looking for that next opportunity? You can't. And if I told you that the engagement levels, I mean engaged, fired up, A game, excited and enthusiasm, if I told you that that was only 10% in the military, you would probably be scared. You see, business leaders aren't scared, but they need to be. They can stop the revolving door, and they can actually tap into the best power source that they have, which are their people. And leadership is the people business. Now, when I ask leaders on a scale of 1 to 10, how important are your people? They'll say a 10. When I ask leaders, what's the greatest asset you have in your business? They say our people. When I ask them to define their leadership development program, they say we don't have one. And so if leadership development is the people side of the business, how can people be your greatest asset when you're investing more time on fixing equipment than growing your people? And this is a question for everybody on this call. What are you doing for your people? How are you developing them to stay? Now, even though there's a lot of disengagement out there, or even non-engagement, when surveyed, 95% of people say they want to be part of something special and great, which means 5% don't. So don't hire those people, don't keep those people. But the gap between 10% engagement and 95%, I want to be part of something special and great, I want to bring my A game, that gap is a leadership gap. We cannot order people to be excited, but we can influence them and we can lead the way. Now, the statistics on engagement are powerful, Chris. What it's saying is that if you can get one person on your team to shift their mindset, not bark and order at them, but shift their mindset, that one person, when they go from non-engaged to engaged, they have 20% greater performance. And we have to stop for a minute and think, as leaders, we accomplish things through the efforts of others. Do we want those others to be engaged, non-engaged, disengaged, or actively undermining, or looking for another job? I will take an engaged team any day of the week. Now, that's just getting one person engaged, and leadership development increases engagement. If you can sustain engagement for your team, get everybody engaged, you can have 31% higher productivity, 37% higher sales, and you can create 300% greater creativity. If you can sustain engagement, which ties back into leadership development, companies can achieve 202% greater results. I mean, Chris, you're probably okay with 202% greater results, right?
Come on down.
No doubt, right? When I ran the media company, I was the VP of a media company in Southern California, and I implemented these leadership traits and principles there. We grew our annual sales 303%, and part of that time was during the Great Recession. Did we have better equipment or more equipment than our competitors? Absolutely not. We had better people. We developed everybody from the driver to the owner as a leader. But the biggest problem in corporate America is that we spend about 1% of our training time on leadership. And so what I teach organizations what to do, I teach them leadership development from the idea of planting leadership seeds. In other words, it's not going to grow overnight. You're not going to create the next redwood tree tomorrow, but you can plant the seed. And when we think about planting seeds, I mean, we've probably all planted a seed in a white styrofoam cup and frustratingly watched it not grow for a while, right? And then it breaks the surface, and we act like we found the cure to everything. And it's just so exciting to see it grow, and that's how it is with our people. And so I always say that growing people as leaders it's very similar to growing plants. We have to select the seeds, choose the location, plant the seeds or sow them, and cultivate or nurture the seeds. And when we do that, things grow. Instead of having our people in a position of leadership, we need to give them the purpose of leadership. And in my book, I talk about the 4 purposes. We have 4 purposes that we need to teach, our elite purposes. We are here to teach our leaders how to enhance the perceptions of themselves and their people, how to elevate priorities, because if everything's important, then nothing's important. So some things have to become a priority. We've got to teach leaders how to prioritize. We also have to teach them how to empower their people, to get the most out of their people, including enthusiasm. And then we can reach this level that most leaders never get to and exceed possibilities. I mean, at the media company, Chris, the first goal for the owner was to double sales. When we tripled sales, he was okay with it. I didn't get written up. We were okay with that. There was no reprimands, right? So we exceeded possibilities. So there was a goal of doubling sales, and when he announced it, it was a big goal. When we exceeded it, it really opened our eyes up to the power of people. Now, there are studies that show how many decisions we make every day. You have people that have made a decision to actually watch this webinar right now, just to watch this session on leadership. And they have decisions to make. We have decisions to make on what we eat every day. We have decisions to make on who we're going to call in business today. We have a lot of decisions. And studies show that we make 35,000 decisions a day. I have no clue how they found that out. That is an incredible number. But in order to develop our people, in order to be the leaders our company needs, and I'm sure you agree with this, Chris, right now as we're transitioning from COVID-19, the world needs more leaders, more people who are focused on the people side of the business. And I'm going to add one more decision to everybody watching this. The first 5 words in my book. I want to encourage everybody to make the decision to lead. You know, Chris, I always appreciate the opportunity to work with you and to work with Bob, and you just attract so many amazing people, so many leaders who put their people as a priority. And if any of them want to know how to transform the people they work with, I would be happy to teach them more about the leadership connection and how to get every single person on their team thinking and acting like leaders, talking about leadership traits that matter the most to their company. And I'll end it with this. If you're listening to this, identify the top 3 traits you expect of a leader in your company and work with your leaders on putting together, here's our top 3. Before you promote somebody, influence somebody. Hey, thanks so much, Chris. Always great to have the opportunity to talk about leadership with you.
Eric, it goes both ways. I'm always juiced when I hear you speak, and it's so tangible and practical. And I want to thank you, the listening audience, listening to this Oxenane Brief. You know, if this has resonated with you, if you are even wanting to entertain the prospect of how do I apply this into my organization, into the greatest resource we have, which is our people, give us a call or use the contact information, oxenane.com, spelled AUXANEIN.com, info@oxenane.com, or give us a call, 612-695-9176. And it's not just leadership. Eric can do speaking to your entire company. He can work on leadership modules and training sections. He can work on a strategy, strategic planning on that process, work with your sales teams in that process, and it is so measurably tangible. This is Chris Fleck with Oxenane. So glad you could join us. Give us a call soon. Thanks so much.